What up, what up, what up? Welcome to this Monday episode of 94 Feet with Coach JT. Big shout out to my young homie, Smooth, aka Jalen Coates, with that dope track he's dropping called You Got It for all our queens out there. Yeah, I told him I was gonna open the show with that, and I'm gonna rock that for a few episodes, man. That show has a message. It's J Coates featuring EK. Check them out. They're on all like platforms, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere, man. That's a dope song. I was excited to actually premiere that first, and told him I'm gonna rock with it for a minute. All right, real quick, y'all hit the website 94feetwithcoachjt.com. We are fully up and rocking. You guys can come see, get merch, buy whatever you need. Still got some sales going on. Got the HBCU there too, man. So check out the page. Shout out to any of the sponsors that have bought merch, people that have helped bought merch. I appreciate y'all. And Wednesday, 26 this week, man. Birthday again. Me and the twin come to our place. We have a networking event, but we got DJ Rip in the building. It's gonna have music, fun, just interacting with each other, hanging out. It's gonna be some line dancing going on, some dancing, hanging out. So I appreciate y'all. Please come out Wednesday. Register at Eventbrite. All right, let me get into this introduction, man. This young lady deserves all her flowers now, but also I'll make sure we get into some information she got for you guys coming up. She's a Spelman College graduate, attended Spelman in Atlanta, Georgia. She majored in chemistry and women's studies while dedicating herself to leadership positions and activism as a student organizer. After Spelman, she earned an MPH and Doctorate in, let me get this right here, Epidemiology from the University of Michigan School of Public Health, focusing on indigenous reproductive health and aging women's health. In doing so, she prepared herself with the tools to better protect our communities. Also, she began a career in California's public health sector as a California's epidemiology investigations service fellow, later working with the University of California, Frisco. She became an advocate using her experiences and education and advocate to preventative services for women and access to free wellness visits, maternity care, coverage, breast pumps, and birth control. Currently, right now, she is, and you may see her in Sacramento on your Facebook, on your YouTube, out and knocking on houses, knocking on doors. She is none other than Dr. Flo. Let me bring her in right here. There she is, Dr. Flo. I messed that word up for me. Give me that word for me a few times. Let me hear it.
The word is epidemiology and
epidemiologic. And epidemiologic. There we go.
Yes.
I thank you. I know you are a busy woman right now and on the move to some bigger and better things for our city and state as well. But how are you this evening?
I'm doing well, and I really appreciate you having me on your show. So thank you so much for the invitation.
So I got my HBCU shirt on too.
Yes.
I had, you know what I'm saying? So we got to stay repping all the time, but
I'm wearing my Spelman blue.
Oh, so there you go. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. That's all right. So for those, and again, people, a lot of my followers, some are HBCU, some are here, but even for myself, they may not know people that should get to know you now as far as the current role you're making strides in this particular part of your life. They may not know exactly where Dr. Flo is from, but they may want a little bit of history of Dr. Flo. So let's start from just give me a little background about yourself as the person growing up and where you're from.
Absolutely. I am originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I grew up in the Hill District of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where August Wilson wrote his Century series. So every story from Fences to Two Trains Running to Jitney, all Gem of the Ocean, all of those are written about the neighborhood that I grew up in. And my parents were both public school teachers. My mom taught 8th grade English. My dad taught 8th grade math. There was a very nice meet cute for the two of them around a meeting because my dad would come by during my mom's prep periods and flirt with her. My mom was unaware that she was being flirted with until she mentioned to one of her friends, who was also a teacher, that this math teacher kept coming by during her prep periods and was very curious why he didn't have work to prep for himself. And then thankfully my godmother said, "I think he likes you, Gail." And so my mom was like, "Oh, is that what's happening?" Fast forward, they get married and have me. So shout out to friends for helping my oblivious friends realize that shots are being shot.
Right.
And so, so I grew up with my parents in Pittsburgh, with them, taking me to take dance classes and swim classes at the YWCA, going to plays when the new August Wilson play would come out, because that was a big source of cultural and artistic pride in our community, and just generally being involved in things. My parents, were always rolling up their sleeves and getting involved. There were always former students coming by our house to be able to do yard work, or we were always going to, to support them in their new endeavors, whether that was opening up a new business or, or graduating from something. We were always involved in our community and in our church and those kinds of things. And so, unfortunately, when I was just before my 12th birthday, my dad passed away of congestive heart failure. And obviously it's challenging to lose a parent at any age, but it's especially challenging when you are so young. And adding to that complication is that he collapsed at my aunt's birthday dinner. And so my family was there. And so I was the one who dialed 911 and, and kind of dealt with some of the aftermath of that. So part of, my life story is recognizing all the ways that the systems that we interface with have the ability to shape our outcomes. I think a lot about the systems that failed my dad. My dad started smoking before the tobacco companies were honest about what impact that had on our health. My dad, if he were alive, would be 77 now. He died at 47. And so, for him, he started smoking before anybody even said this isn't good for you. And he also worked in the steel mills for a little bit before he went to college with his father. And so, the exposures, right, when you're doing those kinds of jobs. And he also worked in buildings with disturbed asbestos before we started, addressing that. And so the heart disease, the premature death, right, are what accompany, when we don't have strong protections in place for our communities. And at the same time, I also benefited from some of the protections that did exist. In the aftermath of my dad passing away, I got individual and group grief counseling from my public school, which allowed me to process one of the most traumatic losses of my life. My friends were able to come to my dad's funeral as an excused absence because they understood the importance of social support for me as I was grieving. And my mom was able to continue to afford our house on a school teacher salary. So I wasn't uprooted from the only community I knew during a time when I was already experiencing a major shift in my life and my everyday, being. So I recognize the importance there. And I also think about how much worse things would have been if, instead of having an ambulance show up to be able to try to resuscitate my dad, and met with, a gun and, arrest or, something so much more traumatic, which we know has happened to people who've called for medical emergencies and have been met with law enforcement and trauma. So I am grateful for all of those institutions and the way that they wrapped their arms around me in a time of need. And I went off to college at Spelman looking for ways that I could continue to serve my community, and really didn't have the language at the time to recognize, these are systems and these were policies that were put in place to protect me. But I came to learn that over time. And so that's kind of my early life story.
Yeah. So you finished up right before going to Spelman too, though. And I think prior to this major movement we're having now, HBCUs, we know they weren't on the forefront of all the, the medias, all the news stations, everywhere like that. You may have seen recognition from some of the top athletes back in the day who made it pro, but what was your deciding factor on an HBCU in general back then? Because then times were still different, right? I guess we're telling our age a little bit, but it was like we heard about it, we knew someone, but what was your deciding factor, or was that something that was embedded you through, like I know now, like a lot of history, right? They say, legacy stuff. So was it somebody in the family, or where'd that come from to decide to make that move?
Yeah, it's a combination of factors. So neither of my parents went to historically Black colleges. And so my mom actually went to a women's high school, the Philadelphia High School for Girls, which is a public school. And she also went to Chatham College in Pittsburgh. And so she talked about how, her experiences integrating a school that was predominantly white, and being one of the first Black students to go there, and how she doesn't have a lot of regrets, but she, sometimes wishes that she had gone to an HBCU. So I think that was one of the seeds that was planted. I would also say that, in my family, My cousin Mary Jane was the first college graduate in my family on my dad's side, and she went to Howard University, HBCU, right? And so, and on my mom's side, my grandmother, my mom's mom, went to Fisk University for college. She did drop out because she got pregnant with my mom, something I never let my mom live down. But she later finished up at Cheney in Philadelphia. And so, so for me, I knew people in my life who went to historically Black colleges and universities. I had members on both sides of my family. My dad's family is a lot more blue collar, but a few of them went to college, a few of them went to the service, right? And so there was just sort of like, if you're going to go to college, HBCUs were an option. And then enter mainstream media, because A Different World was influential to me, right? I was, I
That's
think
all we knew.
8 or 9, right? When
Yeah.
the school came, when the show came out, and when they were showcasing Hillman, which is actually the set of which is actually Spelman College's campus, when you see the outdoor shots. And so I thought, my mom went to a women's high school and college. These HBCUs exist. Atlanta seems cool. Like, let's see what this is about. And so that was really kind of my path to Spelman. And also, my pastor went to Johnson C. Smith. So I had people in my life who were talking up their HBCU experience and encouraging me to go. And of course, family, friends, like older relatives and things like that, who were going off to college and going to Howard and Hampton, and just kind of made it seem cool and exciting and the thing to do.
That's nice. So initially, prior to that, were you going any visits there? Have you seen the campus anywhere? Have you been to Atlanta?
I did. I've been to Atlanta a couple of times. One time for the NAACP's AXO convention. We were competing with the Pittsburgh delegation, I think when I was in like 10th grade. And I also went on an HBCU tour that was sponsored by one of the organizations in Pittsburgh. And so we made our way down most of the Eastern Seaboard and, stopped at Shaw and Johnson C. Smith and South Carolina State and Spelman and Morehouse. And, we kind of, and Clark, and made our way around. And so that was my opportunity to be able to really look at a lot of the campuses and meet students and ask questions, and really it made it real, right? It wasn't just like, oh, these other people in another generation went to these schools, or these fictional characters are showcasing this experience, but I'm actually meeting real students who are on campus in the moment.
Nice. So getting on, again, I see the undergrad is in chemistry and women's study. But how did you find the area of which you would like to have the area of interest of study, right? Because what you're getting ready to do now is not a common thing for a woman, period. But now a Black female, but also it goes back, your college education is basically preparing you for this next phase of your life. But how did you get to that point where you want to serve others or serve community, serve people, stuff like that? Because that's not always at the forefront of what we push for, our demographics of people on a regular basis.
Yeah, so, my majors, I think, were just a combination of like an affinity. I always had an affinity for math and science. Both of my parents, obviously being educators, had a role in just the exposure. My mom wanted to be an engineer. And when she graduated from high school in 1967, she was told she was Black and she was a woman, and that was unrealistic and she should think about doing something else. So I think my mom kind of gently pushed me in that direction of science because, in part because it was like an unfulfilled dream of her own. And in part because I think if I had shown no aptitude for it, she wouldn't have forced me. But I think she saw that I kind of liked some of the sciences. And so she put me in the Charles Drew Science Fair and the Pennsylvania Junior Academy of Science, and really cultivated those experiences with me, going to the Science Center on the weekends and just being able to really, encourage me in that area. And then I think with my dad passing away when I was younger and knowing that he was a math teacher, I think there was also the nostalgia of here's this connection I can maintain with my father. So I minored in math in college and majored in chemistry and then picked up a second major in women's studies because I was trying to figure out how to combine this wanting to understand the world, right, and the social sciences, and and make sense of the patterns I was seeing around me, and then also wanting to understand the physical world and make sense of the patterns that I was seeing around me. And thankfully, I had a professor, shout out to Dr. Demanja, who I was doing some bench chemistry research with, and he encouraged me he got tired of me asking him questions that he didn't really care about, and he knew I was searching for something, and it was something beyond just bench chemistry, and so he suggested that I take a public health class, and that was how I learned about epidemiology and learned about public health and figured out that that was a great way for me to marry those two things and figure out how to study, how human behavior influences our health outcomes and figure out what we can do about it.
Great. That's amazing. And I guess this leads me right to the next thing. So, double majoring, how challenging was that? Because we already see a lot of success. We see the finished product of stuff, but how difficult was that for you to juggle this, move around that, and do that? But also, you're going two things at one time.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it was challenging, and also it wasn't at the same time, right? Because these two things shouldn't be so different. What we understand about the physical world and what we understand about, the social world is integrated, right? Our health and well-being is influenced by where we live, where we work, where we play, where we pray, what we eat, right? Like all of these things that are happening. And what we eat is as much, what's available to us in our communities as it is cultural, as it is, right? So like all of these things are coming together to shape the outcomes that we see. So you can't really there's no scientific method without, and no understanding of the physical world without understanding the context in which we live. So I always found sometimes these conversations about like what's happening in the, in chemistry or in biology and what's happening in the physical world to be siloed in a way that doesn't feel real. Because in our real lives, our health and well-being is as shaped by our access to medical care and our access to medicine as it is by where we live and who we hang out with and how much stress we're under and, how much money we make and all of these things that, are not necessarily like biological.
Okay.
So I saw just a lot of connection between these two things that I was learning.
Good. What would you attest your driving force to? I know you talked about pops and math a little bit. Mom's not doing this, but what gives you that go to continue? Because I'm sure there's 1,000 barriers and walls you have to break down, even through the college spaces. What kept you moving forward in these steps?
Yeah. So, I think there were a couple of things, right? I found amazing friends when I was in college, people who shared interests with me and who like kind of broadened my horizons, right? We were all coming from different places, from Oklahoma, Chicago, right? Like Texas, California. And so it was great to be able to be with these young Black women who were sharing the same, cultural identity as me, but were so very different. And so I began to appreciate the diversity that exists within Blackness, right? The diversity that exists within Black college age women, right? You think you're kind of limiting, and instead you're learning all of these things about our musical tastes and our cultural references, and how we do things, and the food that we eat, and the way that we move through the world and see things, our political perspectives, right? All of those things were really, really interesting to me, and so I think what the Spelman experience gave to me was a sense of camaraderie with people who may not always think and view the same way, but we're open to having conversations and we're open to learning from one another. And I think that was really instrumental in shaping who I am as a person and how I approach the work that I do, and also the relationships that I have in my personal life.
That's great. Get through college. We're gonna fast forward here though. Okay, now let's get into the current campaign. As far as this phase that you're coming into right now, this is something that takes guts. It takes sacrifice. But let's start. How did it come about? What made you make this first move, or feel like you are the person, individual, spirit? But I can tell you're a strong individual to handle what comes your way through this process. Let's just talk about the seed that was planted, or what even got this ball rolling for you as we get into that.
That's a great question. I think part of it was I have been, just doing the work that was in front of me and trying to meet needs, trying to show up with other members of my community who were leading work on making our communities better, right? On advocating for some of the things that we knew we needed to see, and speaking truth to power. And it was really giving me the courage to be able to step out and share my own expertise and be a part of these collective movements, and to roll up my sleeves and say, I don't want to just tell you, I want to be part of the work. I'm willing to invest and to shape and to be a part of this. And so I did. And what I kept finding was that we were running up against the barrier at the very last last stage of change, which is getting our elected officials to be able to put on the agenda and vote for the things that we were giving them solid advice and giving them data to support and explaining. Up and to do all of these things. At some point, it's like the only variable left to change, right? It's the scientific method. Isolate the variables, change each of them, see what, and like we've changed all of these other things. And the last variable that needs to change is, who's making the decisions, because we keep hitting a brick wall. And so at that point, I started getting involved in, some of the things that were happening around town. I've helped to organize the Sacramento Sister Circle and Black Women Organized for Political Action voter guide that we put out every single election to be able to help people understand who to vote for and think about their values and how they may be reflected in some of the policies and some of the candidates that are on the ballot. And, have been involved in championing, policy advocacy in various capacities, and just came to a place where I was like, I cannot sit through another election where we don't have a candidate, that's joining, especially in our city council, where the city of Sacramento is incredibly aligned and is really willing to roll up their sleeves and get involved in things. And where we don't have, a set of leaders who are on the same page about how we set an agenda and how we govern the city. And so I was like, if I live by the adage that if you show up places and you say somebody should. And so I got tired of saying somebody should. And I said, okay, I'm willing to throw my name in the hat. And for me, what that also means is that I have to understand the responsibility that I'm taking on, right? It's hard work, not the hardest of work, but it certainly is hard work in that people are going to show up in kind of a church tradition and lay their burdens at your altar. And it is your job to hold them. It is your job to find, solutions. It is your job to apologize for the institutional harms that have been created. It's your job to set a narrative around a vision around where the city is going. Mm-hmm. It's your job to bring people together and to make sure that how we work together is better than the individual, sum of our parts, right? That we create something bigger and better than just pure addition, and that it's coordinated, that we're all rowing in the same direction and not against each other. So we're not spinning a boat around in the middle of the lake, but we're actually making progress towards one side or the other. And so that's the responsibility that I'm taking on. That's an understanding of self that I'm bringing to this, is that I have people in my life who will be there to be able to tell me, hey, we support you and we love you unconditionally. But that's not the role of the community. That's not the role of the city. When I step in as mayor, that role is for them to tell me, this is what I'm doing. This is what's not working. This is where I need your help. This is where we need your leadership. This is where we need some decisions to be made. And for me to hear all of these ideas, for me to hear what matters to people and what's important to them, for me to be able to glean from them and to use my own expertise to understand and make sense of what I'm hearing, and then to ultimately make decisions, to accept the responsibility that I am requesting that you bestow upon me, and to bring all of us together in the process of making those decisions.
Great. So you're in the process of as far as when actually is because again, I've seen the marketing, the advertisement. What are the important things people should know about this when they need to vote? When it's the accurate date that these information needs to be out there, right? As we know, our young people, they see something, they may not know, I never know the date or don't know where to go, but actually I'm not sure right now, when is the actual date while we're talking about right now, when is the date? So when they hear this, see this, they can save in their phones, go to the polls, whatever when is the actual date that they need to make this move?
That's a great question. So the next election is March 5th of 2024.
Okay.
So it's coming up, early next year. And so between now and then, a key step is to get registered to vote so that you're able to participate. Luckily, we do allow people to register up through, the election. So, but if you would like to have a ballot mailed to you, which makes it very convenient because you don't have to make yourself available on March 5th, you can vote anytime within the month before. You definitely want to register to vote by end of January, end of December, beginning of January, so that your ballot will come in the mail where you are and you're able to fill it out. You can mail it back. You do not have to supply postage. It's nice if you do, but you do not have to. You can also drop it off at any of the vote centers. and you can participate in that way. So there's lots of options. You have a full month to be able to vote from the time the ballots are mailed until March 5th. As long as you get your ballot mailed off by March 5th, it gets counted. So that's the way to participate, and we need all hands on deck for this election.
Yes, and also seen on the give your website information out too, because I know you have you're taking volunteers, you're taking support stuff. People can walk the city with you. You have some knock on door days on there too. Just give everybody information that way they can find you as well.
Yes, you can find me on at www.floformayor.com. So that's FLOFORMAYOR.com. And you can also find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. And to any of those places, you can reach out and you can get connected with the campaign. And we are walking every Saturday. We're meeting up right now at 9:30 so we can get started to walk around 10 a.m. so we can beat the heat. And we'll be doing this every Saturday through the election. So you're welcome to reach out and to sign up, and we'll give you the location because we're going to be hitting the entire city. So we're moving around to different locations each week. So sign up, join us. That's a great way to help. And also, this is a people-powered campaign. And what that means is that I'm not taking money from certain sources. I'm not taking money from law enforcement because they are the largest expenditure in our city's budget. And I think it is incredibly important that we maintain some independence on making decisions about our budget. And so I'm not taking their money for that reason. I'm not taking money from corporate PACs because I do believe that business is certainly important in our community, but I want to make sure that the voices of our community members are not overshadowed, by people who have more resources and money. And so I want to kind of bring those influences into balance. I'm not taking money from fossil fuels because climate change is real. I believe in environmental protections, and I don't want to take money from people who are operating in opposition of our interests, especially because that's an incredibly important and a looming threat that if we don't address will be a problem. Yes. And then I'm also not taking money from the tobacco industry because I, have a personal vendetta against them for the role they played in my aunt's lung cancer that she's battling right now and my father's death. So I will not take money from them. What that means is that, I'm taking, small dollar donations, large dollar donations from people in the community. So if you, believe in what we're talking about here in terms of a people-powered campaign, in terms of addressing some of the equity issues, in terms of identifying, real solutions for homelessness, getting back to the 2 years we had from 2018 to 2020 where we had no youth homicides. If those things sound good to you for the city of Sacramento, I strongly encourage you to get involved, to contribute to the campaign. You can make a recurring donation. You can make a one-time donation. You can give between now and March, but the sooner you give, the more we're able to prepare for things and buy things like lawn signs and walk cards and be able to do mail and all the things that are necessary to be able to get the word out and ensure that they get elected mayor come March. So
that's what's up. You guys heard it again. Like she's trying to be elected mayor. Something that is phenomenal, just from all aspects, but also somebody who's not originally from our city, but she's taking this is home for her, which I think is dope. That says a lot there already, right? So to me, that means a lot. What would you say to just overall for yourself though? What are some of your biggest strengths you say you bring to the table, just as a person? Because people would need to know the person that you are. Again, so once you get elected, we don't speak it to existence, right? Once you get elected, they might not be able to see you all the time or come shake a hand too often because but what are some things that you say your biggest strengths are as a person individually though?
Yeah, and before I get into that, I do want to say, I have lived here for almost 20 years, so
Sacramento,
absolutely my home.
Yeah.
And I've spent most of my adult life, right? This is the only place that I've had a career and worked. This is, the only place that I now own a home. A few years into that, and I joke to people and I say I hate moving so much that I'm going to die in this house. So this is where I live. So I'm running for mayor.
Sorry about that, people. She'll be back in 1 second.
Look aside, when it comes to thinking about strengths, I think what I bring to my work is a public health perspective and its diversity. So one of the things that public health allows you to do is be able to hold complexity and understand that two things can be true at the same time. So it can be true, just to use an example, that, you know, within the Black community, we are disproportionately likely to experience high blood pressure, right? And especially with age. So if you're meeting somebody who's, you know, over 50 or over 60, the likelihood is that they may have high blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And that does not mean that every time you meet a 55-year-old Black person, you should ask them, so you taking lisinopril because you got high blood pressure, right? Like both of those things can be true. We can be more likely, and also that does not mean for every individual you encounter that's going to be true. And so it's being able to hold the individual and the pattern at the same time, and be able to identify and address the patterns without stereotyping or maligning individuals. And understanding that the people who are falling into this pattern, it's not necessarily because of some failure of their own political will or any of those kinds of things. It's because the environments we live in are designed to get these outcomes. And these patterns are predictable. They're also disruptible. And so that's what I see in cities. It doesn't mean that we don't have individual responsibilities for the way that we live our lives. But what it does mean is that so much of how we live our lives can be shaped, can be influenced positively or negatively by the environment. And I'll give you a really basic example. Coach JT, if we were in person right now, and I had, you know, showed up and I had brought a series of snacks, right? Maybe some cookies, maybe some carrots and dip, maybe a few things, right? It's, you know, 6-some in the evening. You probably haven't had dinner yet. You would probably have munched on some of those things, something in there, right? That I offered you. Maybe I had some water, some tea, some whatever. You'd have had some food. Now, if I showed up without those things, you absolutely would not have had food. And I'm willing to bet that you would not have said to me, "Hey, Flo, you're a guest on my show. Will you run to the store and get me some snacks?" You would have done it, right? No. So that's an example, a micro example of how the environment shapes your behavior. Because if it's there, you're more likely to eat something, right? And if it's not there, you're not. And so those are little things, right, about the environment that determine what we do or don't do. So if we design our environments in such a way where they promote our health, where they promote our connection to one another, where they promote education, where they promote the arts, where they promote our healing, where they promote our joy, where they promote our humanity, then we're more likely to get those outcomes. And if we design our cities in ways where they promote disconnection and they promote violence and they promote harm and they promote, they promote things that we don't want to see happen, then that's what we're going to see happen as well. And so it does not mean that you don't have individual responsibility to say, I'm hungry and I should ask for food, or I'm not hungry, so I shouldn't eat food even if it's presented to me. But what it means is that your choices and the way that you move are going to be heavily influenced by what I present. If I put carrots and things out, you're more likely to eat that. If I put cookies and cakes and sweets out, you're more likely to eat that. So what that says to me is that we have a responsibility to design things in a way that help to get the outcomes we want, because systems are perfectly designed to get the outcomes that they do. And so if we want different outcomes, we need to have different systems designed. And that's why, that's what I'm bringing to the table as a strength, is an understanding that, sure, I could will myself through the sweets aisle every time, or I could change my environment and not have to use that willpower. Right?
Not even go to that same store, that same.
Exactly. I don't have to walk into the candy shop, and then say I'm going to be strong, right? I can just do something else. And so that's the kind of example that I want our cities to look at. Is I want kids to be able to have no option but success, because we've designed it so that that's the inevitable outcome.
Yeah, that's good.
And we have not done that.
That's good.
And so I think that's the strength that I bring to it, is that I see the strength in a community, and I don't trust anybody who can only tell you what's wrong with the place. If your view of Sacramento is we're not this and we don't have that and you don't I don't trust you.
Say that.
That doesn't mean that you can't see problems. But if you only see problems, you don't see people.
You got a problem solve.
No place is all bad. Yeah. No place is only struggle. Yeah. Every place has strengths, and you can't solve a problem without being able to take advantage and build on top of the existing strengths.
That's good. That's dope. Yeah, for sure. That's definitely That's powerful, but it's also it's direct too. Like that's real. That's real. Like it's got to be some strengths in here. I like that. That's pretty good. So in the show is titled 94 Feet with Coach JT, and that's resemblance for like basketball metaphor terminology. But in basketball, they have something called like a triple threat, right? Where you dribble, pass, or shoot the ball. But I ask all my guests at the end of every show, though, just give me your triple threat personally, though, right? So somebody who may not know you, somebody who does know you, but three things that going forward they can know about yourself, three things that you stand on, or three things that you morally like are kind of, this is what I do, this is me. Give me those three things, your personal triple threat right now for those listening, watching, and to see come in the future.
Yeah. Okay, this is good. Let me think. Okay, one thing about me is that I value people over profits. So if I have to choose between what's going to make money and what's going to do right by people, I will always choose the thing that is right by people over the profit. Because I think if you start chasing money, at any point in life, you'll be chasing it for the rest of your life. And I think that there are riches that go beyond just, the immediate profit. I believe that I think one of the other things about me is that I really do, I guess I'm going to talk about my beliefs. I really do believe that there is enough for all of us to eat. That's something that I say all the time. There's enough for everybody to eat. And what I mean by that is that I believe that the earth is abundant in resources enough that all of us can have our needs met, because we all don't have the same need. I mean, we have similar needs, but we don't all have identical needs. And also because there is a way that we should be able to collaborate with one another to make sure that's happened. And when we don't, meet needs, it's because some people are hoarding more than is necessary and are making sure that other people don't have enough. And I think there's enough for all of us to have our needs met and to have a really enjoyable life. I think the other thing about me that is important to maybe know is I believe in joy and laughter. And so I love to laugh. I like to make jokes. I really think that life should not just be about the serious things, but it's also about the fun and funny things. And I think that there is just a real way that our humanity is connected to when we find things that we can be amused by, and that can really just bring a smile and a chuckle to our faces and our hearts. So I think those are three things about me.
That is definitely dope. Three things. Again, give us what everybody can find information out, volunteer, send money, give that website information out one more time for me.
Absolutely. It's floformayor.com. That's FLOFORMAYOR.com. And if elected, I will be the first Black woman to be mayor of Sacramento. I'm already the first Black woman to ever run for mayor of Sacramento. So this is, really, I think just when we talk about representation mattering, of course, being a Black woman is part of that representation, but it's also, I'm running on behalf of all the dreamers, all the people who believe that, we can do more, that more is possible, which is my slogan. And so I'm inviting all of you in to be able to be disruptors. Let's do something different. Let's infuse love and art and music and spirit and humanity into the way that we make decisions about the people around us, because government doesn't have to be stale. I think government should be a reflection of the people who live in this community. And I think it's a very vibrant one. And I want to bring that spirit in such a way that when I'm gone in a few terms, that lives on, and we come to expect something different from our governance, and we view our participation in a very different way. We're not demoralized by it, but we see it as a sense of civic responsibility.
Definitely dope, and I'll definitely be sharing all the information again on the websites, on the social media platforms as well, tagging Dr. Flo and all those pages as well. I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy woman. Thank you again. You guys again follow the website. Send donations. If you want to volunteer, please volunteer. It'll be greatly appreciated. Every Saturday they walk in. They meet up in the morning. They walk in every Saturday. So I hope to have this conversation again in March with mayor in front of it.
Yes.
After that, right, we're gonna say that right now too. But again, you have my support as well. But I appreciate you taking time out your Monday evening, and best of luck going forward. And stay with it. I know we can have those trying times in situations and occasions, but like you said, you got people supporting you or behind you or want to see you win. Personally want to see you win. So that's definitely dope, and I appreciate you coming on this evening.
Yep, this is for all of us. So when you go out and you tell people that you're getting involved in the campaign, you tell people we are running for mayor.
Let's go.
I cannot do this by myself. So
Yeah.
Coach JT, I expect to hear you telling people
Yeah.
that we are running for mayor.
We on it.
So we need your help because
Okay.
it's definitely not about me. I don't have all the answers. And this is going to be a team effort from the campaign through the governance. It's going to be about our voices coming together. So everybody tell folks we are running for mayor. We are about to make this happen, and we are going to really change how Sacramento is run and how it makes decisions.
Yes. Shout out to the Serial Connection guy. Always been following the page, supporting the podcast, man. Coach, he said he loved the episode. He appreciates your words. He said, shout out to you. Thank you, Dr. Flo. So people tuning in already, leaving some messages. Again, you heard it here first, man, with Dr. Flo here, 94 Feet with Coach JT on this Monday evening. Again, show support, show love. If you have questions, please send your questions that way too, so they can help you out and get the information needed so it's going to be a successful campaign for us and as we become mayor of our city. This time, as far as May next year, March next year, it's coming soon. So be ready. Have your eyes open, listening, send that paperwork in and go register to vote. All right. Appreciate you guys listening in. Again, thank you, Dr. Flo. I'm Coach JT. We out. Peace.